Svirzh Castle is a castle in Ukraine, located in the village of Svirzh, Peremyshlyan District, Lviv Region. Founded in the 15th century by Andrei and Martin Svirsky, it was first mentioned in 1484. Initially, the castle was a purely defensive brick structure, square in plan. It was repeatedly rebuilt. The year of completion of one of the stages of the works is indicated directly on the walls. Above the central gate on the inner side, the carved number, 1530, has been preserved. The first owners of Svirzh then it had the status of a city, and the castle itself are considered to be the Romanovskis. In the middle of the 15th century, the town of Svirzh passed into the ownership of the Polish family of Svirsky. It was the Svirsky who built the main part of the castle buildings. It acquired its modern appearance from the middle of the 17th century, when it became the property of Alexander Zettner. The Count bought it from the Svirzh Castle in 1641 and subsequently significantly expanded and strengthened it. There are assumptions that Zettner's plan to fortify the Svirzh Castle was carried out by the well-known fortifier, General of Artillery Pavlo Grodzitsky. Work on the reconstruction of the castle was carried out around the time when General Grodzitsky was building two arsenals in Lviv at the same time, the Royal and Senyovsky. Despite its advantageous defensive location, the palace type of its architecture could hardly have had a serious defensive significance. It is known that during the Ukrainian-Polish War in 1648–1654, the castle was captured more than once by Cossack troops, and in 1648 it was burned by Tatars. In 1672, during the Turks' march to Lviv, he could not resist the Turkish siege. During the second campaign of the Turks in 1675, the Svirzh Castle stood firm and protected within its walls the garrison of the Pomeranian Castle, which, not having sufficient strength for defense, escaped to the forest through a secret passage and fled to Svirzh. After war damage, the walls were restored and strengthened, but in general, the castle gradually changed its purpose from defensive to purely residential, turning into a ceremonial residence. If until now the castle belonged stably to only two noble families, then from now on it changes hands again and again. The frequent change of owners had a negative impact on the building. The estate was not taken care of. The descriptions of 1882 and 1892 mention the poor condition of the building, in particular the destruction of the buildings from the north and east. In 1907, the castle became the property of Robert Lemezan de Salins, at that time an officer in the Austrian army, later a general and diplomat. He restored the estate, investing considerable funds, and turned it into a luxurious residence with rich interiors. But in 1914, during the First World War, the castle was completely burned down by Russian troops. However, this did not force the owner to abandon the castle. Later the decoration of the windows and doors, cornices was restored, buildings and towers are again covered with a roof. The main restoration was completed in 1917, as evidenced by the carved commemorative inscription above the gate from the outside. The general's daughter, Irene, married another military figure, Tadeusz Bohr-Komorowski, known for the Volyn tragedy and the storm action, with whom she lived in the castle from 1930. In 1939, the castle was nationalized by the Soviet authorities. For a long time it stood empty. For a short time it was used as a school for tractor drivers. And as early as 1978, it was transferred to the balance sheet of the Union of Architects of the then USSR. In 1993, the castle was handed over to the State Association, Lvivlis, but later, in 1997, it was returned to the architects again. In 2010, the castle was planned to be handed over as a concession to a private investor, but a responsible entrepreneur was not found. A church founded in the 15th century has been preserved on the territory of the castle park. In 1481, the Svirsky brothers founded a Roman Catholic parish here. The modern brick building of the church in the Renaissance style was erected on the site of a collapsed wooden one. It dates back to 1546. Above the entrance to the church, you can still see the remains of the noble coat of arms of the former owners. An underground passage led to the church from the castle. The collapsed part of the underground passage can be seen from the moat that surrounds the castle near the drawbridge. Lviv local historian Josip Gronsky says that in 1956, in the Svirzh church near the castle, there is also a second church in Svirz. He saw frescoes inside, which were open due to the peeling of the plaster. The frescoes depicted a naked female figure with long flowing hair kneeling in prayer against a panorama of medieval Svirz. Judging by the description, it could be Mary of Egypt. The further fate of these frescoes is unknown. Today, the state of the castle is not the best, but the Union of Architects is trying to save it from destruction. Not only the exterior walls and roof of the building have been preserved in satisfactory condition, but also the interior space, which is used for various events and filming of movies. All this time, the Union of Architects independently takes care of the monument and the territory around it, attracting funds from private benefactors and grants. In 2013, NSAU approved the concept of creating an international cultural and arts center in the castle, which is planned to host summer schools, architectural practices, exhibitions and art events. In 2018, for the first time the castle hosts the participants of the Lviv Festival of Architecture and Arts Tower, as well as the first student summer school, Svirzh Castle, Theatre of Architecture, and the opera, Alcott, of the Lviv Mozart Festival. And in the fall of the same year, with the support of the Ukrainian Cultural Foundation, the multimedia exhibition project, Svirzh Castle, Genesis, was organized. Thanks to its genuine French charm, the Svirzh Castle served as a successful setting in the famous Soviet epic about the Three Musketeers, playing several roles at the same time. It is difficult to guess that the Bethune Monastery, where Constantia died, and the place of residence of the executioner who executed Milady, and the architectural landscape of Gascony are all different expressions of the same face. An almost destroyed ancient tower near the castle was given the role of a fortress in La Rochelle, and even a picturesque local meadow was used during filming as a French pastoral. And what is a castle without creepy legends? There is one in Svirz. Gossip mongers recount the sad love story of a naive local girl who worked in a castle for a treacherous military invader. Having opened the gates of the castle to the enemy army, the girl paid for it with her life, finding her death in the depths of the castle well. Truth or fiction, it is impossible to decide today, but this story, supplemented with a demonstration of an abandoned, but actually existing castle well in the farmyard, makes an unforgettable impression on romantically minded tourists. And what is a castle without treasures? After the Second World War, an underground passage with the property of the last owners of the castle was opened in the defensive ditch under the drawbridge. Although without gold diamonds, the found furniture and household items quickly found their new owners.